So you're thinking about making the move from MySQL over to PostgreSQL. That's a really smart move. PostgreSQL has some incredible advantages.
Yeah.
But migrating your SQL code, it can feel like you're basically trying to learn a whole new language.
Uh-huh.
And that's where this deep dive comes in. We're going to unpack all the major differences between the two, show you all the best tools to make it happen, and most importantly, give you the knowledge to make this switch confidently.
It's a journey a lot of developers have taken, and it's definitely worth it.
Absolutely. So right off the bat,
Yeah.
what are some of those key differences between MySQL and PostgreSQL that we should know?
Well, one of the first things you're going to notice is variations in syntax. So they both use SQL,
Right.
but there are some key differences in how you actually do things. Like, for example, let's say you're trying to quote identifiers in your code.
Okay.
In PostgreSQL, you'd use double quotes, like this, userid. But in MySQL, you often use backticks, userid. It's subtle, but it can trip you up if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's like learning the local dialect before you travel to a new country.
Exactly. And another difference that's important is how they handle data types.
Okay.
PostgreSQL is known for being much stricter than MySQL.
How so?
Well, imagine you have a column,
Okay.
and it's defined as an integer in your database. In MySQL, if you accidentally try to put in like a text string into that column, it might silently try to convert it or truncate it, which can lead to all sorts of data issues down the line. But in PostgreSQL, it would throw an error right away, preventing bad data from even getting in there in the first place.
So that's a good thing.
Yes, it's a really good thing.
Like a built-in safety net.
Exactly.
That catches potential errors before they become big problems.
It's all about preventing those oh no moments and ensuring your data is accurate and reliable.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about syntax and data types.
Yeah.
What about other differences that could impact the migration?
Well, another key difference is the range of functions they offer.
Okay.
PostgreSQL has a much wider array of built-in functions, especially for advanced data manipulation.
Okay.
So, for instance, it has powerful functions for handling arrays and JSON data, which you might not find in MySQL.
Right.
And these can really open up a lot of possibilities for data processing and analysis.
So it's almost like it comes with more serious tools built in already.
It does. And it's also important to note that PostgreSQL is generally more aligned with the SQL standard.
Okay.
So this means that your code is more likely to be portable and to work seamlessly across different platforms.
That's a huge advantage for like flexibility and future-proofing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about making your code more robust and adaptable.
Okay, so now that we have a better understanding of some of those key differences, let's talk about some of the tools that can help us navigate this migration. Because I've heard there's some amazing resources out there.
Well, yeah, there are.
Yeah.
One tool that stands out is Sqlglot. And this is a powerful tool that can parse and transform SQL code between different dialects, including MySQL and PostgreSQL.
So it's like a universal translator for our code.
Exactly. You can feed it your MySQL queries, and it will spit out the equivalent PostgreSQL code, saving you tons of time and effort.
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
What other tools should we have?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When it comes to migrating large amounts of data, PGLoader is your best friend.
Okay.
It's specifically designed to move data from MySQL to PostgreSQL efficiently and reliably.
So it's like a specialized moving truck just for this job.
Exactly.
It's going to get all the data from one place to the other.
It takes care of transferring the database schema,
which
is the structure of your tables and columns, also known as data definition language, or DDL, and all of the data itself.
That's awesome. Yeah. What about all the application level queries and data manipulation code that we have?
That's a great question, and it's something to be aware of. PGLoader is primarily focused on DDL and data transfer. Not so much on the data manipulation language, or DML, which is what you use to insert, update, or delete data. You might need some additional tools or manual effort to adapt those parts of your code.
So it gets the data into the new house, but we might need to do some unpacking ourselves.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But there are tools that can help with that, too. Like AI-powered code assistants, like ChatGPT. These can be surprisingly helpful for translating smaller code chunks. Or getting quick feedback on specific queries. It's like having a SQL tutor available on demand.
That's pretty cool. I'm starting to see how all these different tools can work together to make this whole thing much smoother.
They definitely can. And don't forget about the vast amount of knowledge and experience available in the PostgreSQL community.
Yeah, that's right.
The PostgreSQL wiki, for example, has a whole section dedicated to MySQL tools and resources,
Oh, wow.
curated by people who've been through this process themselves.
So it's like a travel guide written by locals
Exactly.
who know all the best hidden gems.
Yeah, they can point you to the right tools, offer practical tips, and even provide code examples for common migration challenges.
So we've got our tools lined up.
Yeah.
Now, before we actually start converting code, are there any practical tips or common pitfalls we should be aware of?
One of the most important things is to break down your migration into manageable chunks.
Okay.
Don't try to move everything at once.
Right.
Instead, focus on migrating specific sections or modules of your application one step at a time.
So it's like packing for a move.
Precisely.
Better to pack a few boxes at a time than try to cram everything into one giant box.
Exactly. And just as we talked about earlier, be super careful with quoting and identifiers.
Okay.
Those subtle differences between MySQL and PostgreSQL can easily trip you up.
It's like using the right currency in a new country.
Exactly.
Those small details matter.
And finally, don't underestimate the importance of testing. Always test your translated code thoroughly in a development environment before you even think about going live.
That makes sense. Better to catch any issues early on than have a major disaster later.
Absolutely.
So we've explored the key differences, discovered some powerful tools, and learned some valuable practical tips.
It's a good start.
I'm feeling much more prepared to tackle this migration.
That's great to hear. And speaking of being prepared, let's dive into some real-world examples and see how these concepts apply in practice.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get our hands a little dirty here and actually walk through some practical examples of how these MySQL to PostgreSQL differences really play out in the real world.
Yeah, let's look at a common scenario you might encounter when you're working with strings. So imagine you have a MySQL query that uses the concat function to combine first and last names. Something like this. Select concat, first name, last name, as full name from users.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
What happens when we try to run this in PostgreSQL, though?
Well, PostgreSQL actually uses the double pipe symbol for string concatenation instead of that concat function. So the same query in PostgreSQL would look like this. Select first name, the last name as full name from users.
So it's one of those syntax quirks we need to remember.
Right.
What if we're dealing with more complex queries that have a lot of string manipulation that could get pretty tedious to convert manually?
You're right, and that's where tools like Sqlglot or even ChatGPT can be incredibly useful because they can help you identify and convert these syntax variations automatically, especially in larger code bases.
So they're like our SQL interpreters helping us speak the language of PostgreSQL.
Exactly, and don't forget the PostgreSQL documentation.
Oh, yeah.
It's a treasure trove of information. It gives you detailed explanations of all the functions and syntax, so you can always cross-reference and make sure you're using the correct PostgreSQL equivalents.
So it's like our dictionary and grammar guide for our new SQL language.
Exactly.
What other challenges might we face?
Well, one thing to keep in mind
Yeah.
is that PostgreSQL is very particular about data types.
Yeah, didn't we touch on this a bit earlier?
Yeah, we did.
Could you maybe elaborate on why that's important in a practical scenario?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's say you have a column defined as an integer in your database.
Yeah.
If you accidentally try to insert a string into that column, MySQL might silently convert it to an integer or truncate it to fit, potentially leading to data corruption. That's hard to track down.
Yeah, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
It might work at first, but it'll cause problems down the line. Now, in the same scenario, PostgreSQL would actually throw an error immediately, preventing that incorrect data from being inserted in the first place. So that's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
Yeah.
It helps ensure data integrity, which is crucial for any application.
So it's like a safeguard almost.
Exactly.
It prevents potential data corruption.
It's all about understanding how these nuances can impact your data and your application in the long run.
I think, okay, this is making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We've covered tools, specific examples, the importance of data types.
Yeah.
We talked about the PostgreSQL community as being a great resource.
Right.
Are there any more pearls of wisdom from developers who've already made this migration?
Definitely. A common piece of advice I see is to break down the migration process into smaller, more manageable chunks and prioritize the most critical parts of your application.
So figure out the core functionality that absolutely needs to work and focus on migrating that first.
Exactly. This minimizes risk and makes sure that the most important functions are working correctly in the new environment.
Right.
It also makes the whole process feel less overwhelming. You can tackle the less critical parts later on.
It's like tackling a big project one step at a time.
Exactly. And another tip I've seen is to document your migration process as you go.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, it creates a valuable resource for your team and can be a lifesaver if you ever need to refer back to how you handled specific challenges.
Documentation is so important.
It is.
Especially in a process like this. Speaking of team, how do we manage the expectations of stakeholders throughout this whole thing?
Communication is key.
Right.
Keep everyone informed about the progress, the challenges you're facing, and the timelines involved.
Transparency and realistic expectations.
Exactly. And remember that migrating to a new database system, it's a learning process for everyone involved.
Right.
Encourage your team to embrace the challenge and view it as an opportunity to expand their skills.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not just about moving data. It's about empowering your team to grow and learn.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Yes. Practical examples, community tips. I'm still curious about one thing, though.
What's that?
We've talked about the how-tos. But what about the why?
No.
Why are so many people making the switch from MySQL to PostgreSQL? What are the benefits that make all this effort worthwhile?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And it's something we need to explore in more depth.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about overcoming these technical hurdles.
Right.
It's about what you can do with PostgreSQL's unique strengths.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to delve into in the final part of this deep dive.
Right.
We'll uncover the unique advantages of PostgreSQL.
Yes.
And discover why so many developers are making it their database of choice. All right, so welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground in our migration journey. We've talked about the differences between MySQL and PostgreSQL.
Right.
We've looked at some practical tips and tools. But now let's answer that big question.
Yeah.
Why PostgreSQL?
That's the exciting part.
What makes it worth all this effort?
It's about more than just solving technical issues, right?
Right.
It's about what you can actually do with PostgreSQL's unique strengths.
Okay, I'm all ears. What makes PostgreSQL stand out?
Well, think of it this way. If MySQL is a reliable workhorse, PostgreSQL is like a high-performance sports car.
Okay.
It's built for speed, scalability, and a whole range of features that can really take your applications to the next level.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So where do we begin? What are some of those key advantages?
Let's start with data integrity. We already talked about PostgreSQL's strictness with data types and how it prevents errors that could slip through in MySQL. But it goes beyond that.
Okay.
PostgreSQL offers a comprehensive set of features like constraints, triggers, rules that enforce data consistency and really prevent those oops moments that can lead to data nightmares.
So it's like having a built-in quality control system for your data.
Exactly.
Ensuring accuracy and reliability.
And then when it comes to performance, PostgreSQL is really impressive. It's designed to handle these massive data sets and complex queries with remarkable speed and efficiency.
I've heard that, yeah.
It has some really smart optimization techniques, especially for like tasks that involve retrieving data, making it ideal for applications where performance is absolutely critical.
So if speed and efficiency are top priorities, PostgreSQL is the way to go.
Absolutely. And then there's its support for advanced data types. We touched on arrays and JSONB earlier, but there's so much more.
Oh, wow.
PostgreSQL offers a rich set of geometric types for spatial data,
Okay.
network address types for handling IP addresses, and even the ability to define your own custom data types.
So it's like having a specialized toolbox with the right tool for every data scenario.
Exactly. It gives you incredible flexibility in how you model and manipulate your data.
This is great for developers.
It is. And this extensibility goes beyond just data types. PostgreSQL also supports a wide range of extensions.
Oh, wow.
Think of them as plugins that add even more functionality.
So it's like a modular system.
Exactly.
Where you can add the features you need.
Yeah, there are extensions for full text search, geospatial analysis, integration with other programming languages like Python, and much more. You can really tailor PostgreSQL to fit the exact requirements of your application.
It sounds like PostgreSQL is not just a database, but a whole platform for building these really powerful applications.
I couldn't agree more.
So we've uncovered the technical aspects of migrating from MySQL to PostgreSQL.
Right.
Explored the tools and strategies, And now we've delved into the why behind this transition.
The why.
We've seen how PostgreSQL empowers developers with its robust features, performance, and flexibility.
Absolutely.
What final thoughts would you leave our listeners with as they embark on this migration journey?
I would say, remember, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
The PostgreSQL community is incredibly supportive and welcoming.
That's right.
There are forums, mailing lists, online resources where you can find answers to your questions, get advice from experienced users, and connect with other developers who are on the same path. Embrace this opportunity to learn and grow. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one sharing your expertise and helping others navigate this transition in the future.
I love that. I think we've equipped you with a really solid foundation to take on this migration.
Yeah, you got this.
So thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time as we explore another fascinating topic.